Let's take a moment to center ourselves into this space. Let's give thanks for being in the present moment. Let's take a deep inhale in through the nose. Fill up the belly, expand the chest, expand the heart. Exhale, sigh it out, let it go. Another big deep inhale in through the nose. Fill up the belly, fill up the chest, expand your heart. Exhale, sigh it out, let it go. One more time, a big deep inhale in through the nose. Exhale, let it go. God, we ask that you come into this space right now. We ask that you fill up our hearts. All the words from our hearts, our intentions from our hearts, may they go to the words that we speak, and from the words that we speak to the thoughts that we think. May they be downloads directly from you. May you guide our conversation, and may you continue to keep us covered and protected as we navigate through this space of wellness to uplift, inspire, and enlighten humanity. In God's name we pray and give thanks. Amen. Ashe.
Amen. Ashe.
And
Ashe.
so it is.
Thank you so much. Oh, I needed that.
Yes.
And I like how you talked about enlightenment, because I feel like that's what our objective is here, is to enlighten our people and wake up our people and talk about, those taboo or uncomfortable conversations to bring awareness and light, so that we can progress, and as a nation, as a people, as one. And so, yeah, it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
And so that really resonates with me and you. Just as we, walk through life, and as women of color, like, I don't want to walk around it. There can be a lot of taboo around getting help and mental health awareness and different mental health issues and chemical imbalances in the brain and the body that can lead to different outcomes. You and I were just talking about the other day how our justice system and how that correlates with mental health, and how a person who might be arrested for acting out towards a cop or having an adverse reaction may literally be experiencing a chemical imbalance in their brain for why they're having this reaction. The angry Black woman, is she angry, or is she literally having an episode, experiencing a bipolar episode, a schizophrenic episode that we are constituting as a problem? I do feel in other races, I'm not gonna lie, let's just talk about it, that mental health awareness is something that's more accepted. Like, hey, let's go get you a therapist.
Absolutely.
Let's go take you to the psychiatrist. Let's get you evaluated. Let's
at a young age too.
At a very young age, because these things, arguably maybe they have the resources, the time to be able to, the insurance.
There it is.
To be able to take their child at 3 or 4 or 5, you see these early signs, to go get help. Whereas our Black babies, our Black children are seen as, oh, he's just angry. Little Black boys are being called young men. Even in the news, they call them a man when he's still a minor. Like, we're viewed very differently. Black women are viewed as strong, powerful. Strong. Well, I want to say powerful because that's how I see us. But society, it's a systemic problem.
It is, for sure. This is such a big issue within not just our community, but around the world. I believe that mental health is something that every human being struggles with, and we're on the spectrum in some sense. We all experience. So I just want to, so everybody can get an idea. What is mental health? Mental health is like you said, a chemical imbalance within the body that shows up as different, known as disorders, such as depression, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, and bipolar, schizophrenia. And it can look different in each and every one of us because we are different beings. How we express it can be, it's different. So it shows up differently. But like I said, everybody actually has some form of mental health disorder or chemical imbalance. It's just a matter of being aware of it. And when it goes back to when you
Where are you
mentioned,
on the scale?
where are you on the spectrum? Yeah,
Mhm.
where are you on the spectrum? And for us, Black and brown people, for I understand it stems from back to slavery.
Mhm.
It stems
Ooh.
from this systemic oppressive environments that we have been brought up into.
Well, let's talk about it because I just picked up a book, Medical
Oh yeah.
Apartheid,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going back to how different medical experiments were performed on
Mm.
slaves. Just think about it, right? We were taken from
A
our
country.
land.
Mm-hmm.
I think they said 12 million, 8 to 12 million
Mm-hmm.
slaves, right,
Mm-hmm.
were put on these boats. Now,
Mm-hmm.
mind you, I think only 1 to 2 million survived just
Mm-hmm.
coming to this land. So don't quote me on those numbers. I know it's somewhere in that ballpark, but just
Mm-hmm.
think about living on those boats, right? We know
The
about the Mayflower, we know about Columbus and that
mm-hmm.
whole,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we were taught in school, but
Mm-hmm.
how do we not know the names of those 12 ships that
Mm-hmm.
brought Africans to
The
this
U.S.
land
Mm-hmm.
to be here?
Mm-hmm.
And think about the mental trauma that we endured on those boats.
Well, even before we got on the boats,
Oh,
having had an opportunity to go to Ghana and
yeah.
go to, the actual spaces where the ships left from. Some of the
Mhm.
places where the ships left from,
Mhm.
um, uh, Elmina.
Mhm.
That's what it was called. I was trying to remember the name. Elmina.
Mhm.
It's a coast off of in Ghana, where you go to these different castles
Mhm.
where a lot of the slaves were taken from. And so you get to go into the rooms where the males were kept and the females were kept, and the conditions that
They were
they were in.
separated.
They were separated. The males, there was probably in the males quarters where they were kept, there was like a window of air that was about this wide and this tall, where they would
Wow.
pack in
Mhm.
hundreds of men in this small tiny room. They didn't have a bathroom to go and use, so they're defecating wherever, in the small space that they had. And the heat in Africa, how hot it was, there was no air circulation. They would only get a little bit of air coming in. So, and this is months before they even get out onto the boat. So they're malnourished because they're not eating.
Mhm.
They're dehydrated, suffering from dis-ease. And then the women on the other side, pregnant, having their menstrual cycles, defecating and urinating in this one space where they're all suffering, not knowing when they're going to leave, when they're going to get out, and being, once the ships come, now you're on the ships for months at a time,
Crossing the Atlantic.
crossing
And
the
when you were
Atlantic.
talking about the men, I'm just thinking about the mental breakdown
Yep.
of the male as the protector of his family, of
Mhm.
his home, of his village, of his land,
Mm-hmm.
realizing where he is now because there was a lot of manipulation to get them into
Mm-hmm.
that space in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing, wait, where is my woman, my family, my children, and the mental breakdown of the man, the Black man, the African man, before even getting on the ships, right?
Mm-hmm. And they would have to, sometimes coming from Benin and Togo, they would have to walk for miles to even get to the castles. So they're chained walking from, when I say miles, I mean these are different countries. So you're
Mhm.
walking from Benin, Togo, you're walking to Ghana. And so you're exhausted there. So even if you've survived that, being in the heat, then you
Mhm.
get to these quarters, you're kept for months, and then you finally go through the door of no return. You don't know where you're going. You're separated from your children, your wife, your loved ones, your spouse,
Mhm.
and then you're kept in these confined spaces where, again, defecating. And not to mention also some of the women, when the headmaster wanted to be with any of these women, he would choose the women, go up to his quarters. We went to where the quarters were held, where he would do whatever he wanted to with this woman. And when she refused, how she was put on public display and watered, she was dumped in a well of water or sprayed with water and embarrassed and, sometimes left for dead. And so you got to think mentally, emotionally, spiritually, Africans were
The
broken down.
breakdown.
And And so the ones who even made it to America,
I was
it's
just
a
thinking
miracle
that
to
the people who
even make it.
we are descendants of those
Mm.
who survived all of that trauma, all of that turmoil, and the biggest difference with slavery and its effect on America, and because this is systemic, right? This is a systemic issue. It's literally built in, because now in my critical reasoning class, we're talking about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and the people who wrote these things, how some of them were even slave owners themselves writing down the Constitution of how this nation would be run. It is systemic. It is in the pen that wrote down
It was created that
the
way.
laws.
Yeah.
And now we are living in this system
still
to this
today.
day. Those same laws, those people those slave owners who wrote down what America should look like, and how they wrote down that a black person was 3/4 of a person, right? And then really the only reason why we got the freedom, right, was because they wanted to put us into the capitalism society, right? They wanted to make money. Okay, let's make money off of these slaves then. All right, so if y'all gonna be free, well, we gonna work you into this, right? And so the reason why Ashley and I are so big on travel is because the system of America does not want to educate our people on why we are the way we are, where we are, why we operate the way that we do. Because if we really knew what slavery was, if we really knew the trauma that our descendants endured, we would be educated enough to break ourselves out of the system and demand change and demand a rewrite of this whole country and like how things are ran here. And so now we are facing an issue of mental health crises.
Yeah.
And I mean, how is that showing up? I mean, even let's just break it down on the level of the taboo behind calling a therapist. I mean, in our families, when we were children, kids weren't going to therapy.
I mean, even when I started going to therapy, and I shared it with my father, the first thing he said was, "Why are you going to therapy? There's nothing wrong with you." And so the idea behind my father, who is 40 years my senior, his thought process to going to therapy was something had to be wrong with you. And whereas you had to be crazy, you had to be, and I'm like, to be able to process all the emotions, because again, we talk about systematic and trauma is, passed down generation through generation. So everything that, my ancestors who went through and survived,
it's still in your DNA.
It's still in my DNA.
If it's not healed, it's still being passed.
In some way, somehow. And you even look at now today how the Black, family is constructed. A lot of times it's set up for the man to be out of the home and for the woman to be, the single mother.
That's a systemic setup to separate the Black man from protecting his family.
Yes. And so going back to just this taboo around getting therapy and getting the help that is needed. And I understand not just, African Americans have been through trauma. We've all been through some sort of trauma, but it's really important for us to talk about our own experiences, because I believe that when we can fully show up and share what we've experienced, hopefully the compassion from others to understand, okay, I've never heard about it that way. I've never thought about it that way, that's still, being processed or they're still carrying that. We hear this like, get over it. It's happened already. Like why are we still, why do we have to pay for something that, your ancestors had gone through, or their others ancestors had, done harm to others. But I think when we just talk about it, when we bring awareness to it, we can all heal from it, because African Americans healing from it is not just beneficial to us, it's beneficial to the world. When we can acknowledge that something happened, and we have compassion for what was done. We can't change it. Patience, compassion. I see you. I don't label you as angry or or as someone who is going to cause harm to me, so I'm afraid of you. It's knowing that we're human. We're all human. And if we can provide the tools to be able to help our people, Black and brown people, all people, I want all people to have tools for wellness, but specifically, if we can provide the tools to the Black and brown people that need it, because we all need it, I think that we can live in a more healthier, more peaceful, harmonious planet. And that is, why I want to really, talk about, mental health and, how it's affected me. I'll just kind of share,
Mhm.
my mother struggles with bipolar.
Mhm.
And, I struggle with some
Mm.
depression and anxiety from time to time, and a little bit of ADHD as well.
Mhm.
When I talked about being overwhelmed, trying to juggle multiple things at one time, is because, I saw my dad do so many things at one time. Again, being a single father, sometimes, I just thought, nobody else is going to show up. Nobody else is going to do it. So I have to figure out how to do these things myself. So the weight of carrying that can sometimes be too heavy.
Mhm.
And utilizing different tools, like we mentioned before, like the yoga, the meditation, the eating healthy, the making sure that my environments, my support system is healthy. The things that I watch, the things that I intake into my body are healthy, so that I don't have to revert to the medication that a lot of people are put on, a lot of children are put on,
At such a young age. And
Yeah.
I also, when you were speaking to that parenting, right? You know, a lot of these disorders um don't even come out until your 20s, your
Yeah.
early 30s.
Yeah.
It's maybe a life experience triggers the schizophrenia, triggers it's underlying, right? It's dormant, the bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
have a traumatic experience, and then it kind of triggers and activates, and then now you are schizophrenic, now you
Yeah.
are bipolar. So yes, it is, we do need to talk about, and we will have more episodes on this, the signs showing up in children, right? And
Yeah. The
making
falling
those
out.
calls, like,
Yeah.
it's okay, get your child evaluated, get yourself evaluated, right?
Yes.
And then also just understanding that it's okay to receive help,
Yeah.
and it is okay to be looked out for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially our Black men. I
Hmm.
think it's so important for our Black men and brown men to get the help that they need. Like you said, getting evaluated. I think one of the most important things, when you're aware now that these are disorders, and you're feeling down. I think being aware of some of the symptoms of can be really helpful, like feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling tired, overly tired.
Even
Go
feedback from your family
Family,
and friends,
yeah.
if it could be a hormone imbalance, if
Mm-hmm.
even not wanting to have sex, that could be a
Yes.
hormonal
Yeah.
imbalance,
Or too much sex.
triggering anger,
Hmm.
too much sex,
Shopping, anger, over consumption of food.
mhm.
Like some people are emotional eaters. There's a reason why you're doing that. You're suppressing something. You're trying to fill a void, something that may have happened in childhood, or and so excessive shopping, excessive overeating, too much sex, not enough, not wanting sex, or
When you talk about eating disorders, that's something I was dealing with, last year. Was, we think of eating disorders as, maybe throwing up after you eat, or not eating,
Mhm.
restricting. For me, it was, and I woke up my awareness to this through my spiritual practice, but it was, I'll be healthy,
Mhm.
and then something happens, right?
Mm.
Something happens in my
Triggers.
relationship or in my family that triggers me. And then I go to Taco Bell and I order,
Yeah.
5 tacos
Yeah.
supremes, a burrito, da da da, and then I
Yeah.
eat it, and then I would feel horrible
Mhm.
afterwards. Like, why did I just eat that? And da da da. And so I realized that food was like my coping mechanism for my triggers,
Mm.
for my mental health,
Mhm.
and once I was able to reach out to a therapist, I come from a family of therapists. My grandmother's a therapist. My mother's a therapist.
Wow.
I started yogi therapy.
I love
So
this.
therapy wasn't a taboo in my home.
Mhm.
At the same time, I did realize there were points where sometimes my mom was my therapist instead of my mom, and that's a different
Mm.
topic that we will
Mm.
we'll get into, where maybe you didn't need that
Yeah, yeah,
therapy.
yeah.
But
We really need your mom on the show. Like,
yeah, we're going to bring her on the show,
yes.
and she's going to really break down what she's experienced with the mental health barriers in our
Mm.
communities,
Mhm.
and how she's been able to really help women in our community overcome and get the help that they need.
Yeah.
We'll go deeper into the psychiatry behind it.
I
The
love that.
actual, we'll break down the science of what's happening in the cells, what's happening in your brain
Yeah.
when these triggers are coming up,
Yeah.
seeing things, the schizophrenia, saying things. We really want to help our community through education.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also want to share, like, it's an ongoing thing. So I know a lot of people try to find this like quick fix.
It's not
like, oh, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to be fixed, or I'm going to take
No.
this, medication, I'm going to be
lifelong
fixed, or
commitment.
I'm going to go to, do this plant medicine ceremony and I'm going to do yoga and
yeah.
it's life. It's ongoing. Like
Yes.
these tools are to help you because, you can't undo what's been done, through like you said, previous lifetimes and things that it's a part of your DNA. But how do you turn, lemons into lemonade? How do you, find the best parts of you, or to know when there's certain things happening in your body, certain chemical imbalances, being aware. That's why, starting to be aware of your body, how you feel, tapping in, being quiet so you can realize what's happening so that you can say, okay, my trigger, let me, and having a regular therapy schedule, session schedule, like
even once a month.
Listen, I go every 2 weeks. I have my therapist, and she's there as a preventative way to continue to help support me on this life journey, which and I still struggle with things like even the overeating. I'm an emotional eater at times. Be careful of my words. I'm healing through that because I don't want to affirm that is who I am. So,
right.
I'm aware that I do the same thing, and I'm really working through that so that I can have more control over my mind and my body and my, responses. And yeah, I think this is a really, really great topic, and I really want to expand on this with having your mom come on and really getting deeper into the science and how we can share different resources and tools to help us all navigate through, mental health imbalances, so that, again, my goal is that we can live a happier and healthier life, and we can, live amongst each other in a more peaceful way.
Well, yeah, I mean, these chemical imbalances show up differently for our people, right? And so getting us connected with Black therapists, Black psychiatrists, to be able to tell us what's going on and teach us and educate us, I think is huge. And so we'll be bringing that into our podcast.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share a couple of different pathways to like healing, mental health chemical imbalances. And I know we talked about a lot on here, like I said, yoga, walking, meditation, prayer and meditation, different herbs and nutrition to help, like ashwagandha and St. John's wort, magnesium, adaptogens to help with the gut brain connection, putting yourself in environments that are really healthy, like nature, taking a walk and taking a hike. Just being around the trees and the grass and hearing the birds chirp, like those things, they have a rhythm to them that really help bring us in balance and calm us down. A couple of things that I've experienced even in therapy, where my therapist in the past, Black therapist, she implemented different things like somatic therapy, where we would, she would have me hold my hand, not tapping, but it was like she would have me a little bit of tapping, but kind of just do different exercises to help me heal or release some trauma that was embedded in me. And also EMDR, like she would have me speak about my life experiences with my headphones in, and I would listen to these binaural waves that were really healing. They would go in and out between my ears, and as I was talking about my life path, it would really it would help me, I guess, through waves heal, and when I would come out of those sessions, I would feel a lot lighter. So I was just first a little bit skeptical, but then I realized, oh wow, the things that I had been holding on to, I mean, she even started back from when I was in my mother's womb. So it was really interesting to see how she would ask me questions and I would have answers to them, but as a newborn child, how do I know what happened in the operating room? But she was able to, she asked me questions, and I was like, whoa. Like, how did you get that out of me? Like, but it was visions that I had. I didn't probably have words as a child, but just to talk about something that's really powerful in ways to help with therapy. And like we said, support groups, like spiritual communities, trusted elders, and sister circles.
I mean, I was at the hair salon where a Black doctor came, and I'm sitting under the dryer, and I guess my hairstylist had brought her on, which we're going to bring her on the podcast as well. And she did a whole session with the women in the hair salon about hormone imbalances.
Oh, wow.
I mean, our people are coming together to offer these resources for free.
I love this.
To support each other.
Yeah. And so just to kind of also give a couple different books to help to kind of help if you are looking to learn more about mental health awareness. And one is The Body Keeps the Score. You mentioned
Hmm.
that in another podcast episode that we had. My Grandmother's Hands and Healing Developmental Trauma. So just to get deeper into your um, to becoming aware of what's happening within your body. These are some books to help you navigate that. And Yeah, anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
I want to take down those walls of resistance, of fear in our community, and be open to healing, to change. And I think a part of that starts in the home. It starts with our children, and it starts with opening the doors for them to get the help and healing that they need. So, if your child maybe acts out in a certain way, if you act out in a certain way, make that appointment. uh, Use Google, use ChatGPT, use AI to find these places that will support you if your insurance isn't covering it. If it's not accessible, I promise you there's a way. And Ashley and I are here to support our community
Absolutely.
in finding those resources, and so we'll have them linked on our social media accounts.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just want to leave you with, just a little something before we end the segment. I want to say, may you know peace, may you remember your power, and may you
Mm.
give yourself permission to heal.
Mm. Thank you. We'll see you
Thank you.
guys on the next
Namaste.
episode.
Peace and
Namaste.
blessings.
Thank you.